that bears his name. His personal business philosophy is he's dedicated to helping my clients protect their financial security as they prepare for retirement. I hold myself to the highest level of personal and professional integrity and promise only to recommend solutions that are in my client's best interest. I hope you all online are as excited as I am to welcome these three good brothers to talk to us and to share with us about how it is that we can maintain our financial security and stability in this time of COVID-19 and this time of quarantining. And so I want to just get right out the gate and just ask you all to first talk a little bit about what do you all think people should be doing right now. We'll talk about debt and savings and all that kind of stuff we have on the agenda. But what do you all think people can be doing right now to help protect themselves in this immediate time, dealing with this quarantine and all this other stuff we're dealing with?
I'll go first. First, I definitely believe you have to pray. Do everything that the CDC says. Wash your hands, wear your mask, gloves, and so forth. But you got to pray. I know Dr. Ferguson preached yesterday at Shiloh 7 Adventist Church in Petersburg and said, stay in the boat. I think sometimes with what's going on right now, people are thinking about financially, will I survive? But the important thing is to have a relationship with God and trust him that this is not the end of the world. It doesn't end to COVID-19. But I believe that if you pray and trust God, everything will be all right. And then we'll give you some ideas on what you can do financially to prepare yourself throughout this ordeal.
All right.
Yeah, excellent suggestion. That's first and foremost. Secondly, I would say it depends on what your situation is. There are people that have a lot of debt at this time, whether it's a little or a lot, and there are people that have lost their jobs and have that debt. There are others that still have their jobs, but it might be kind of an iffy situation depending on what industry they or company they work for. And they may not have an emergency fund. And then there are others that, have secure jobs that have an emergency fund. And so, there are different things that people can do. But definitely, I would say at this point right now, having or taking care of your most immediate needs, including food, shelter, transportation, and your utilities, those are going to be those four things are going to be primary. You should not be purchasing anything beyond that. If those are the first things, making sure that you and your family are well taken care of, and then anything beyond that, making sure your emergency fund is fully built. And I would say fully built means about 3 to 6 months of expenses or so. And then if you have both of those things, you still have your constant income, then now is still a great time to get into the stock market. But I would worry about those things first before getting into the stock market.
Yeah, let me echo what Troy said. I think right now cash is king. So whatever you could do, above all, make sure you can save as much cash as possible, because that's what's going to help you kind of weather through the storm. Access to liquid cash is going to help you execute on some of the day to day, right? So I think that's most important for everybody during this time.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about first if we were to just do sort of a step down plan. What are some of the negative and positive positives of debt, and what are the ways that you suggest people pay down debt? We're going to talk about building an emergency savings plan like you all talked about. We're going to talk about that next. But what are some of the creative ways that people can pay down debt, and then what are the negatives and positives of having so much debt?
Well, debt can be a good thing, and it depends on what kind of debt it is. For example, if you have a mortgage, you'll be able to write off, part of that, on your taxes. So that's something good. But there's also bad debt. People have certain consumer loans that they don't need. And I think that if you continue to create debt of assets that's depreciating, it's going to affect you. For example, we have a program that's called Good, Get Out of Debt in 9 years or less, including your mortgage, without spending any additional money. Now, people say, well, how can you do that? Well, as a matter of fact, I just had an appointment with a woman in Louisiana today, and we just did one for her. Pastor Levy. I just had one of your colleagues in Texas. We just had him on Thursday, and we showed him that. I am not here to tell people that you should not, apply for a credit card if you think you need one for an emergency. Some people don't believe in that. I believe that there's good debt and there's bad debt. And what you have to be careful of is make sure that the debt that you have, it's something you can manage. And most times, what will cause stress, and especially in times like these, can you imagine having all kinds of debt and nowhere to pay? Although there's forbearances with mortgages and rents and utilities and so forth. But the important thing is that, and I think Joseph talked about it, if you have 6 months, some people say 3 to 6 months, I say 6 to 12 months of living expenses saved. And that way, when something like this happens, you can ride the wave. But good debt is a mortgage, a lot of bad debt. We'll talk about it a little later as we continue.
Yeah, I think the debt that's killing our community specifically is consumer debt, right? And that's the bad debt. So the credit cards, the and if you look at the reason why a lot of our people are in debt is usually to either buy things that are trying to impress people, or we're just living beyond our means, right? Not sitting down doing a budget. So, whenever I talk debt, I hope and pray that it has a negative stigma to everyone who thinks about it, right? Just in general. I agree to some, that look, there are some benefits in terms of a mortgage, but if I ask anybody who's a homeowner with a mortgage, how would life feel if you didn't have a mortgage? I'm sure 10 out of 10 would say it would be amazing, right? So my theory is, look, we never want to be in a position where we're dependent on someone or we're owing somebody. The concept of financial freedom comes when you don't owe anybody. So for me, I usually look at debt as never really a great thing. And it's something that we have to fix in our community, right? Is our debt problem for sure.
Is it one of those reasons is that they say that the dollar in our community goes a lot shorter or not as far as other communities? Like Joseph, I know this is one of the things that your foundation works on. So what are some of does that make sense to you, or do I have that wrong?
No, you're right. So, I mean, there are a couple things, right? So when we talk about debt and in terms of the lifespan of the dollar in our community, African Americans actually have one of the shortest lifespans in terms of how long does a dollar rotate in our community. So if you look at our Jewish cousins, like they usually have, close to a 6-month period where dollars circulating within their community. Asians and Indians do a great job. Specifically, they usually have 2 to 3 months, but the Black community is less than a week, right? So a lot of our dollars that we're pouring in is going into enriching other people, right? So and here's the main issue, and it goes back to the debt problem, is that we look at ourselves as more so as consumers, right, and not owners. So what does that mean? Well, I'm going to take a credit card and I'm going to buy, the latest Jordans, or I'm going to buy a Gucci belt, or I'm going to buy a fancy car that's going to help other people, but it's going to put us in a financial burden situation. So that's what it really comes down to, right? How do we make sure that the money is staying in our community? And how we do that is by leveraging the dollars that we have, right, that we own, that we work for, and not borrowing money from, folks outside. I think that's our community, but just, other institutions who are looking to kind of gain interest and make money off of us. So I hope that provides some clarity for you, Defoe.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pastor Levy, I'm coming to you in a second to talk about debt. But for those of you that are online, that are watching, this is some good information. If you don't mind, just share it with your friends so that they can come on and jump on in the conversation as well. Pastor Levy, any wisdom to share with us on debt, good debt versus bad debt, paying down debt?
Yeah, sure. So especially in relation to paying down debt, a strategy that worked wonders for myself and my wife, and that has worked wonders for my clients, is what's called the Debt Snowball, where you list all of your debts from smallest to largest, and you pay the minimum payment on all of the debts except for that smallest one, and anything extra that you can dedicate to that smallest debt, you put everything towards that. And when that's done, you go to the next debt plus whatever you were paying on that. The previous one, that's that smallest one, you put it on the next smallest. and you just keep going, and it tends to work like a snowball. It keeps building until you get to that large debt, and before you know it, you have paid off your loan. So several years ago, my wife and I, we praise God, except for our mortgage, we are debt free, and that is the strategy that we utilize to pay off. And we had $100,000 in student loans that we had borrowed to go to undergrad, as well as I think for when my wife had started grad school several years ago. And so, we wised up. We automatically just stopped borrowing, except for our home, and got out of debt. And that has been a marvelous strategy, and I would highly recommend that anyone look into doing that.
Pastor Defoe, before you continue, Pastor Levy, that's an awesome point that you made, because when I talked initially about the good program, getting out of debt in 9 years or less without spending any additional income, one of the things that's one of the concepts that we use. But the difference between what you just said and what I'm saying is simply this, and I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I want to make this very clear. What I'm saying is, as you are paying down your debt, you are creating generational wealth. Sure. Now, if you have funds and you've paid off debt, but you have nothing to show for it, you're still, I don't want to say in debt, but you're not building any wealth. So therefore, what we try to teach people with our concepts is simply this: as if you live long enough, you're building generational wealth that you can pass on to generations. But if you die prematurely, your family is covered. For example, at a clinician I was talking about, she's about 37 years old, and she's a mental health clinician. Went to a HBCU, and when she's 62, she'll have about $1 million tax-free that she can access. And Joseph was talking about earlier about good debt and bad debt. He's correct. Consumer loans is killing everyone, but especially in the African-American community. And one of the things that people don't realize that's wrong is that you're creating all this debt, and then you have no way to get out of it. What we're teaching you is that, listen, you can get out of debt and build generational wealth. And later on, I'll talk about that when we talk more about retirement.
So tell people all that's well and good, but tell people how you get started. Like, what are the small incremental thing that I can do right now? I'm quarantined right now. I ain't got no money. I can't go out and hustle on the street. I can't do nothing. So what do I do right now to help me get started paying down my debt?
Man, I would say, number one, it takes communication. And I'll probably especially talk to my married couples, but this isn't to exclude singles. I'll get to singles in just a second. But especially for married couples, just having that conversation like, hey, we're not in a great spot. And, it doesn't mean that you don't have good income. There's so many clients that I have of mine that, most of my clients make good money, but they just never learn to work together, to have those conversations with each other, to get on the same page. That has been key for all the clients, for just about all the clients that I've worked with. Being on the same page, working together towards that financial goal. And many times people just kind of, they're like ostriches in the stand. They're afraid to look at the real situation. I get it. I've been there. But you have to look, you have to, to unveil everything. Let's look at it. Let's get naked in front of each other, financially speaking. And let's just have that initial conversation. That has worked wonders for all of the singles. What communication looks like is, that's going to take some accountability with somebody. So just because you're not married doesn't mean that you don't need to be held accountable to someone. If you have an accountability partner, you need to speak with them, maybe at first, maybe daily about it, or weekly or monthly. I still have accountability partners financially to talk things out, as well as my wife. We talk about just about everything financially. So I think communication is going to be key, and learning how to work together. That has always, for married couples, that has always been the main barrier towards financial freedom.
So let me add to that, because I think there's something that's extremely important. And then always, Troy is bringing up a good point here. The reality is, if you talk to most people, how much debt they have, they don't even know, right? So Troy kind of alluded to that. Like, just listen, open up the hood, see what you have. But on top of that, if you're not emotionally distraught or disgusted on where you are, then it's going to be hard for you to overcome. I've seen time and time again, I've talked and counseled several people, start, stop, finish, but there's going to come a point where it's just enough is enough. So my hope and encouragement is, like, not only do you know where you are, but understand it's not even a money issue. It's a behavioral issue, right? So if you're emotionally invested and say, look, I'm going to get this fixed, that's going to be the first step. And then you could start. There's several tactics, we can turn to, like, say how we're going to knock down debt in the midst of COVID, right? Our spending is already by default low because we're not outside, we're not at the local businesses, we're not doing stuff. But knowing what you have and attacking it, putting a strategy in place, and being at the emotional state where you say enough is enough, that's when we're going to start seeing some movement.
Gotcha.
David, one more thing I'd like to add to that is, and you guys are making some great points. I believe that you need to track your spending. Some people, for example, if you're tracking your spending, let's say you use your debit card. And I don't know why people even actually walk with cash nowadays. You don't really have to. But at the end of the month, you can see where you're spending. If you gave me your debit card statement or your credit card statement, I can tell you how you're living. And what happens to a lot of people is that they're spending money here and there and they don't know where it's going to. So there's no accountability. And I think, as Joseph mentioned, if you have an accountability partner, whoever it is, for example, like for work, with my job, we have levels where we can be promoted. And every 3 months, my accountability partner is my wife. So she's always checking on me. And the point I'm trying to make here is simply this: track where your spending is going. If you don't know where it's going, you can't manage it. And you're actually living in in an ocean, and you're going to drown because you don't know where it's going.
I'm not rich like you three brothers, but there is one thing, behaviorally speaking, when people, even with my clients that want to learn how to spend less money, I would tell them, go get a little small notebook that fits in your pocket. And before you spend a dime, write down each amount you're going to spend. And after a while, they would start realizing, I don't need this. Why? Not because I don't want it, but because I don't want to write it down in this notebook. And so paying attention or charting where you're spending your money, I guess, is important. But we're gonna default to you all who got money. Don't listen to broke people like me.
So I'm gonna before, if you don't mind, there's a question, comments here. This is from Howard Nisbeth. He's saying, how about the scenario, I guess, about income right now? Plenty of people are married and single and do not have an income. How do you keep it going? Ordinary folk, professionals, business owners, etc. Very good question. So, that's just, look, your income is definitely going to be the most important or one of the most important things towards financial freedom. Of course, multiple streams would be great, but let's say you don't have multiple streams and at this time you just don't, you've lost your job or lost your source of income. Understood. And another separate conversation is how to actually thrive during COVID-19. I don't have those kinds of answers, but I would say again that at this point, if you've lost your job, your household has lost income, it's not necessarily about going to another financial level. You're gonna have to take care of the basics, and there's nothing wrong with that. Making sure that you and your family can eat, are living well, you're not sitting in the cold. That if that's as best as you can do, then make sure you do that. But all I'm saying is that if that is the case, you've lost income, now is not the time to be investing, because investing is a long-term strategy. Is there anything wrong with investing? Absolutely not. But only if you are at a certain, place financially where you still have your job, consumer debt is out of your life, and you have a built-up emergency fund. Only then would I recommend investing during this time. If you have no job, no income, do not focus on investing. I would even, you don't have a job. I was going to say stop investing in your 401k. So my point is, that is just long term. There's some short term things that you really need to take care of, and there's nothing wrong with that.
So let me just one quick statement that I want to make on top of that, right? Like here's the reality: if you don't have a job right now, and you don't have money, this is going to sound mean, but I need you to experience the pain, right? Because there's going to be a time when things get better, you're going to remember these moments, and you're going to say, you know what, the next time around, I'm going to be prepared for an emergency. Take that aside. There's some jobs out there right now, people that are hiring, right, for, whether it be essential workers. And I know it's not the safest, but if we need income, right, and there's no food on the, on the table, there are ways that we can, work still, right, in the essential, worker side, where we can just get some money to kind of weather through. So may not be the fanciest, it may not be ideal, but I think there's going to come a time and point where we're going to have to be able to say, look, it's not about what people think. This may not be the most ideal job, but I'm gonna eat crap for a little bit, right, so that I can prepare myself for a better future, and that has to be a viable option.
And so we're going to come to what Pastor Lee was talking about with the marriage and family and stuff like that. But Joseph, I want to throw this question to you first. So you just talked about what we do currently to manage or to build up sort of an emergency savings plan, right? A lot of people have gotten their little $1,200 stimulus from the government, right? And they're excited and they're thinking that they should go out and spend it, but they don't have any money in reserves. Listen, talk to us not only just about the $1,200 that they gave us back of our own tax money. That's neither here nor there. But let's talk a little bit about, give people tangible ways as to how they can develop an emergency savings plan. And then I know there's different philosophies on how much that should be, but give people ideas about what kind of things they should be looking at in order to build emergency savings.
Yeah, it's Defoe, it's not a complicated thing. It's very simple. You got to put money aside and save it, cash. I said it earlier when we started. I said cash is king, right? If we self-audit our expenditures, right, a lot of the times we're spending money, either it's to impress somebody else, right, or it's out of laziness. You don't want to cook, you don't want to do anything. You kind of go into restaurants. If we be honest and explore our expenditures, right, it's not ideal. So the biggest thing now is literally stacking up as much cash as possible. And both of the panelists expressed, if you don't have a budget and you don't know where money is going to fly away, call it out. I make $2,000 a month. I have a stimulus check coming in. Put that stuff in a savings account, or put it away where you don't have easy access to it, and start kind of building towards it. I've seen 3 to 6 months. Going through this, I'm starting to realize 3 months just may be too little for a lot of people. People need a cushion. So it's not hard. It's not complicated. It's being able to call out and eliminate certain things that don't matter. We shouldn't be going to restaurants, right, if we have low income and no reserve. We shouldn't be going on vacations. We shouldn't be, wasteful spending out, clubbing, whatever it is. Certain things just need to pause for these kind of times.
David, I was saying that, if you're making $100,000 and you're living like you're making 150 or 200 grand, you're worse than broke. My philosophy is simply this: if you're making 100 grand, live like you're making 50. However, I don't even believe, some people, I teach non-traditional concepts. People know that when they have money, they put it in the bank. Well, banks, next time you go to your bank, right? I don't care if you're in a credit union, Bank of America, Chase, I don't care what the bank is. Go in there and ask the manager, in what account in the bank do they put their money in the bank? They don't put their money in the bank. I teach concepts of being your own bank. And I have a show every Tuesday called Tuesdays with Terrence. We talk about concepts on Facebook Live. And what I try to do is, Terrence is my middle name, by the way. What I try to do is to explain people of concepts of creating yourself as your own bank. And how that actually works is that you need a base and a foundation. Now, I'm not opposed to investing through markets. I used to be securities licensed. I'm no longer that. I'm the safe money guy. My clients never lose a penny. But I say, when you get that stimulus check, put that in your bank. You're like, how does that work, Havis? How does it work, Terrence? Well, what you do is you simply do it as in life insurance that you can access tax-free. But people, those are non-traditional concepts, because your bank, if you're Bank of America or Chase Bank, there are millions of dollars in Walt Disney. Most of you have taken your children to Disney World. Ray Kroc, most of you took your children to McDonald's back in the day. All right. J.C. Penney, if you're married, your wives went there and buy something there. All of those guys use that concept of my bank using insurance to do that. And that's the only way you can create. I know the cheapest way you can create generational wealth is using that concept. And we'll elaborate on that a little later.
But we can't hear you.
Hey, Defoe, you're muted.
Yeah, we're going to come to that last. That's going to be our last point, Havis. I thank you for bringing that up. But give someone, Pastor Levy, give someone some tangible things that they can do right now to start putting together resources for an emergency fund, and how important that is. Because I know this is one of the things that you constantly are harping on for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's as Joseph said, it's pretty simple. There's no, the simplest vehicle for an emergency fund is just a savings account or a money market account. That's what I have mine in. And I could possibly get creative or sophisticated and put it in the market, meaning in mutual funds or something like that. But the thing about an emergency fund is that this is something that you want to have quick access to, something that isn't going to ride the ups and downs of the market. You want this in something very, very safe, and it's intentionally safe. I don't put, I do invest in the stock market. I do invest in mutual funds. But for my emergency fund, it is just in an online bank account. I get a, decent return on it. But the point of it isn't to get a great return on it. The point of it is, hey, I want easy access to this. So case in point, I think back in early March or so, I had to put $2,000 of work into my car. I forgot what happened, but if I didn't have an emergency fund, guess what I would have done? I probably would have gone to a credit card or, gone back into consumer debt. But because I had an emergency fund, and that's really the great power of having an emergency fund, it gives you that flexibility. There's a layer of security there where it pads you from having to go back into debt or deeper into debt to do the things that come up. And here's what's funny about emergencies. You don't know when they're going to happen. No emergency is going to knock on your door and say, hey, I'll be back next month. Just prepare for me. You really have to just be prepared for them. And many times we're just so surprised or mind blown that emergencies happen. But, even though we don't know when they're going to happen, we can be sure that they are going to happen. You're going to have to, get work done in your car or on your home if you own your home, or, someone might get sick. It is what it is. That's life. But we have to be prepared for those things and not hurry up and try to, get ready for it and go into debt to do those kinds of things. So very simple. It's in a savings account, is waiting for my next emergency.
Gotcha. You're so smart. That's why you're my pastor, man. Yeah. Okay. So real quick, right? So we gave people some resources and some ideas. Just real quick, just tell me if I have an emergency account, I need to put it somewhere. I don't want to put it with my main account where I can access it too easily. What do you suggest? Big bank, community bank, credit union? What do you suggest?
Yeah, let me step on that. So I'm a fan of more of the regional banks. Reason why is customer service is usually better. Number two, they're not usually hitting you up with fees. And number three, you get way better interest rates, right? So remember, we're talking about a money market savings account. You go to some of the bigger ones, whether it be the Bank of America, the Chase, an interest rate for them will be 0.08% or 0.01%. Meanwhile, you go to an Ally or Capital One, you're looking at a 1.5% interest rate, right? And it's just extra couple dollars, better customer service, and again, gives you the same thing access. Now, I would just echo what you mentioned, though. It's extremely important you do not mix it up with your checking account, right? So put it in a separate where, they usually have rules on how many times you can withdraw within a month. I think it's 6 times before you start getting penalized. And it's not part of your checking cash flow, right? So that's what I would do. I'd keep it regional, local, with a better, interest rate and no fees. You should not be paying Bank of America or whatever bank to hold your money when they're making a whole bunch of money on your money. Does that make sense? So I think just capture that.
Yes. Go ahead.
No, go on, please, Avis.
No, I was about to say, at my bank, I'm considered a senior because I'm pushing 60. I'm going to be 56, so I don't pay fees. But I don't believe in saving in banks. I don't. I think it's foolish, and let me explain why. I don't think it's fair for a bank to charge, Joseph just said, give you 0.008%. And then for a consumer loan or a mortgage you get 4% down, 3%, 5%, a credit card, 18%, 20%. My point, I believe you save it in insurance. And you're like, how do you do that? Well, that's what I'm trying to teach my clients right now. And some of them are slowly buying into it because it's non-traditional. Because the banks, even if you were getting 3% in a bank, in a CD, and I don't think you can get that now, you still get a 1099. Well, I can have you in an insurance product where you can get over 4% guaranteed. And the funny thing about it is, remember with banks, they don't care how much they charge you. And we as consumers, I only use a bank for my checking account. As a senior, I don't pay any fees in it, but money goes in it every week because of work. But I don't save money in the bank. And I just think that people don't understand the concepts of having it that you can access it tax-free. And then it's a little more complicated for me to explain it to you than this forum. But what I'm saying to you is I don't oppose and disagree with having emergency funds, but you can access it. If your water heater blew or something, you can get the money in 2 days, directly deposit into your account because the guys that come and fix the work. By the time you call, get some estimates. The point I'm trying to make here is that banks and credit unions are great for mortgages and for checking accounts. That's the only thing I think they're great for.
So let me be clear. Let me just make sure I'm clear on this. Like, if we're talking about making money on money, right? I never recommend a bank either, right? Or savings account. But when we're talking about emergency fund, right? That is not about how much money can we make on top, or it's not about, how can we double. That is strictly and specifically for if there is something that's happening, right? Can I be able to do what I need to do? I think that's the important thing. So let's not lose sight of that. So for our listeners, right, when you're thinking emergency, this is literally cash I can get access to if something bad happens. This is not your moneymaker. I just want to make sure that I made that clear.
So what we'll do is, for all of those that are listening, and I just got a text come through from a friend of mine, we're going to make sure that we get information on how you can reach. I know specifically Pastor Levy. He has a coaching business in Havis. He's in this. I don't know if Joseph, if you do financial consulting or with people, but we'll make sure you get their contact information so that if you want to contact them or engage them in some of the things that they're talking about, you'll have access to that. But I want you all to talk a little bit with us before we, we're almost halfway through. So how do we deal with financial discrepancies in marriage? So my wife or my husband believes something, I believe something different. How do we navigate discrepancies in marriage? Now, whoever's brave to talk first. Yeah.
I'm gonna jump in.
Oh, you're gonna go first. Okay, yeah.
Mercy.
And I know my wife's probably watching, but she's probably in the bedroom. But I'll say this though. I believe that, well, first of all, financial literacy is something that's not taught. So, I mean, you didn't learn it in high school and college, I don't know. But the important thing is communication. I think Joseph talked about it and Pastor Levy talked about that way, communication. But one of the most important things is that you got to have a purpose. If you need permission from your wife to spend $25 at Walmart, you all have a problem. But if you're going and you're spending $2,000 without your spouse's, without consulting your spouse, I think that's an issue. One of the most important things that I would recommend for families, married folks, is that make sure you have a set amount that can be spent without permission, okay? And then anything over that, remember we talked about accountability partners. You're in this together. Make sure that if it's over that amount, you consult with your spouse and make sure that it's right. Because sometimes, as you know, money problems can cause marital problems and stress. And Dr. Defoe, you know that better than I do as a clinician.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I 100% agree. It's about, especially that first that you said is super crucial. You got to have a goal. Where are you trying to go? What are you trying to do? And so sometimes, one of the best things that you may be able to do as a couple in those initial stages of, making progress financially is just to dream a little bit. All right, what do we want? What do we want to do? What do we want out of life? Where are we trying to go? What's our, what are some of our ultimate financial goals? Do we want to purchase a home? Do we want to send our kids to college debt free? To be a blessing to them so they don't have to be under the weight of debt. Do we want to be financially prepared for retirement? Do we want to go to Hawaii for our 10th anniversary? You've got to dream a little bit, and sometimes even print that out, put it on your mirror. You see it every day, so that's a constant reminder of the goals that you have set. And then, there does come a time when dreaming has to stop. But dreaming is great. You've got to be able to have those goals. And then, like I said, communicating about it. Havis, I love the suggestion of, setting maybe a threshold. If that's a couple $100, $500, $1,000, I don't know, we're agreeing not to spend anything above this threshold unless we have a conversation first. That works wonders, and that actually, instead of tying people down, that actually promotes trust amongst each other, and of course promotes communication. So I think those are great ideas.
Yeah, I think I'll add two things. I think one is just having a foundational belief that says, honey, we're not going to live beyond our means, right? Number one. I think the other part is working together on a budget. Like if you guys understand and break down what goes where up front, I think that'll alleviate a lot of problems. Now, that sounds easy. It's the grit that makes it hard to do. I think the one other thing I'll add to that too is just also making sure that you are aware on what type of personality or type of money acumen each of you have. And I'll give myself an example. My wife is a free spirit, right? She doesn't like counting dollars. She doesn't, she kind of, just free, like, you know what I mean? And I'm more of a numbers guy. I'm constantly looking at where the dollars are going and so forth. So setting that awareness on where we are, and what's our personality towards money kind of helps with where we're going. But it always also pivots us back to what the core principle is. Like, listen, we want to build financial freedom. We're not going to live more than, beyond our means. And we're going to tie back to some of the goals that we aligned.
Someone talked to us about budgeting, like having a budget can solve a lot of financial problems, a lot of discrepancy. So someone talked to me about budgeting, and I know one thing me and my wife did is we set that limit where we gave ourselves an allowance. So if I bought something with my allowance, so if I showed up here with a brand new 65-inch TV, which has happened, and she asked me where'd this come from, I merely say I saved my allowance, which is only $200 a month for us. So if I save it, I could buy whatever I want as long as I save my allowance and go get it. But talk to us a little bit about budgeting. It still don't work that way. But yeah, talk to us about budgeting.
Okay, well, with budgeting, you don't need a complicated budget. I mean, if there are many tools online where you can do a budget. If you're technologically challenged, get a pen and paper and write down, what your bills are, but I mean, I can actually help someone with that. That's no issue. But I'm just saying, if you want to start in a basic kind of way, write it down. Know what you can afford. I think what happened too many times is that people get a little carried away sometimes. Like, Pastor Defoe, you mentioned that, you have an allowance. So if you save your allowance, you come home with a 65-inch TV, it's cool. But sometimes in some households, that's not the issue. You can't just walk in the house, with whatever, and then expect your spouse to just don't say anything to you because you're a man or you're a woman. It doesn't work that way. It takes communication. But starting a basic budget, and if you don't know how to do that, at the end of the show, you'll have my contact information. We could certainly help you how to create a budget and to stay within your budget. It's an awesome thing to do. Stay within your budget.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't have to be complicated, as Havis said. We have forms that We have some preset budgets, which work for probably about 85 to 90% of us with those various budget categories. It's a template. Certainly love to sit down with anyone and walk through that. Certainly that's what we do at Levy Legacy Counseling, Levy Legacy Coaching, rather. And so, it can be as simple as, hey, this is for groceries every month. This is for rent. You get those major things out of the way, so to speak. So for my house, tithe and offering is at the top of our budget because that is most important to us. And then what's most important after that, we have a place to live. So we, put our mortgage, then groceries, then of course utilities and transportation, gas, so on and so forth. And then, the things that are least important, those are towards the bottom of our budget. If we can afford them for that month, or, we kind of have a change of, sometimes my wife may work part-time at some months or some weeks or whatever. And if that's the case, there are some things that have to be cut from the bottom of our budget. So, but it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be very, very simple. And we certainly have templates for that.
Gotcha. All right. Well, thank you all for that. All right. So give parents and those of us with young kids some creative ways to sort of teach our kids wealth management, financial literacy. I think I saw that there was a school system that finally approved financial literacy in school. We don't teach our kids these things. So help us. How can we teach our children wealth management? Joseph, you start with this. You take this one over.
Yeah. So there are a couple of things. I think number one, and it's unfortunate because I didn't grow up learning these things, but I think the most important thing is teaching our kids the value of money. And the only way you're going to know the value of money is by not giving your kids everything, right? So letting them spend dollars that they earn. So one of the things that we try to implement in our household is, my daughter gets commissions, right? She does things she's supposed to do. She's on a payroll. She'll get paid, right? And when we go to the store, she'll say, Baba, can you buy me this or can you buy me that? And my answer is usually no. But if you have money, right, I'll let you spend your money, right? And how do we make sure we do those kind of things? So I think that's number one. It's teaching them the value of money. And that comes by them letting them feel what an expense feels like and breaking that down. I think the other part is allowing them into the conversation, right? So if me and my wife are talking about our financial budgets for the family in a month, letting my daughter come in to the conversation and let her contribute, let her listen in. Once kids start getting exposed to these things, right? Wait a minute, money doesn't float on trees, or my parents aren't made of a whole bunch of money. That there isn't a certain cap that they have, and there's expenses and there's sacrifices they make to make sure food's on the table. I think they start to get an appreciation, and that ushers in, financial literacy in my perspective.
I agree. I think that the best way, as Joseph is outlining, make your kids work for the money. And there are other, of course, age-appropriate things that can happen probably later on in life. Of course, they'll learn a budget maybe a little bit later. Learning other things such as investing and whatnot. But for right now, teaching our kids the value of work. So in my household, my kids can make money in two ways. So number one, when they are cleaning up at the end of the week on Fridays, them cleaning the house, their play area, their room, so on and so forth. Now every chore that they do, they don't get money for it. So sometimes they wash the dishes. They're learning how to do that now, or even sweep the floor. They don't get money for that. So we don't create an expectation where, them just helping out around the house that they, expect money for every single thing. That's not it. And I don't think that would be healthy. But once a week, they do have an opportunity to do a job, to do it well. I am their supervisor. I check to make sure that everything is well and clean before I divvy out their cash every single week. So that's number one. Number two, and I learned this from Barry Black. Barry Black, almost every time he speaks, he'll talk about the fact that growing up, either his mom or his grandma would give him a nickel for every Bible verse that he learned. So for family worship in my household in the mornings, we've been memorizing scripture. And so they get $1 per verse. And so it's a good incentive for them to, learn scripture, memorize it and whatnot, and to, make a little cash while they're doing it.
You make that available to your members, Pastor? Hey, this is
Yes, David. Something else that I would suggest that you do if you have young children, because our children are all adults. What you can also do is have even in your church, Pastor Lee, you could probably do that. Have the kids having a little investment club. I think I don't know, teach them financial literacy by having an investment club, have them have a treasurer. And I don't know, sometimes they could do, I don't believe in these anymore, but they used to have the little, what they call Uniform Gift to Minors Act, where a kid can get a little account at the bank and let them go make their own deposits and stuff like that. I still rather see them save non-traditionally through insurance. And again, we'll talk about that later. But the funny thing is this, you can have them have a little United Gift to Minors Act account, whether it's a little mutual fund, as Joseph will probably allude to, they can do that. But I believe that if you teach them young about responsibility of money and what it does, as they get older, they will value it more.
Yeah, Defoe, we also got to make a cultural shift, right? I think if you look at every household, we prioritize science, math, reading, literature. We'll make sure our kids get straight A's. We'll make sure our kids know how to prepare for a test, right? We prioritize that to train them to learn things that are probably good general knowledge, but it's not going to be heavily applicable later if we don't shift our mind frame to make sure that we can prioritize financial literacy, right? Getting them books, almost teaching it like its own subject and putting that same energy and that same pressure, right, to get A's and these other ones to get that in financial literacy. If we change that mind shift, I think that can fundamentally shift our culture, right? And I think that could really help financial literacy as well. But we have to prioritize it.
Actually, David, before you continue, someone had asked a question. What do you recommend for any budgeting websites? I think at the end of that show, when we get to give our little contact information, I will have someone contact me if they want to know where they may be able to find a good budgeting tool that they can use.
Sure. There's one thing that I want to sort of expand on. This is that my wife is side texting me, Joseph, when you started talking about that commission-based system. It appears she's made an executive decision that's now going to happen in our house, and that's fine as long as I'm not put on that same commission program. But how is it that we can teach our children how to spend their money? What's important to spend their money on? How do you even, Pastor Levy, teach your children about, okay, so now you've earned money, it's time to return, it's time to bless somebody else? How do you all include generosity along with financial literacy?
Right, good question. So, for my kids, they have a little piggy bank. It's not in the shape of a pig, but let's just call it a bank, I guess. That they put their cash into, because at this point, at this young age, I would prefer them to kind of handle the money, handle the cash, so that they can know it's real. I could just transfer it into like a bank account or something for them. I don't do that. I want them to know that this is tangible. But in their bank, they have 3 slots. These are 3 separate slots within their one bank. One is for give, that they give to church when they end up going to church. And then you have the other one, another one for saving for the future, and then another one for spend immediately or sometime soon. So actually, something came up. I think this happened last night or maybe Friday or something like that. My son plays this little game on the phone called NBA Live, I think. And with most of these phone games, you can spend extra money and kind of improve your player or improve your odds of winning or something like that. And so my son came to me with a $10 bill that he had put into his bank, and he said, "Dad, I'll give you this money. Can I just buy this little package or something like that to make my player better? And it costs so and so much." And I said, I just kind of looked at it and I said, "Son, it would be best if you save or spend your money on something that would be that would actually benefit you. So, spend it on a little video game. Would it be fun in the moment? I'm sure it would have been. But I'm trying to teach my kids that there are things that There's nothing wrong with purchasing wants or desires. Nothing wrong with that. But when you don't have, the things that could better suit you or, better serve your needs, then it's better to spend your money on that. So, just little lessons here and there, have seemed to kind of work wonders for my kids.
Yeah, I think I'll add one thing I learned about, my daughter is she picks up more what I do than I say. I could say a whole bunch of stuff, but if my actions aren't backing it, she's not buying it, right? So it's making sure that, like I said before, kind of getting her in the conversations of how we budget. Also making sure she budgets. I'll be honest with you, sometimes I probably go overboard. We have to raise the stakes of expenses, right? So you can't let your kids, even if they earn money and buy everything for them, right? That's not going to benefit. I think you got to go back and say, all right, right? So if I said and I don't do this, but let's say I said, Jade, I'm going to charge you $1 for rent every month, right? Like those things, we got to give expenses. And then lastly, on top of it, we got to teach them the income side, right? So, if you want to sell lemonade in the summer or do whatever we can to be creative, that teaches them entrepreneurship, the things that they can learn. So I think it's really in what you do, right? Monitor them, make them budget, right? And then they'll start learning about the giving and they'll start seeing the philanthropy work that you do and how you give back to your community. They'll pick up and then they'll start to prioritize the things that you prioritize. And that's how you help in that arena.
Gotcha. Okay, so we're gonna move this conversation along because we got like 3 or 4 minutes left, and so I want to just get a little small snapshot for those people who are nearing retirement and they're worried or they're apprehensive. Give us just a little bit of advice or a little bit of encouragement on what to do with retirement planning, retirement savings, and then I want to make sure that I share contact information. So Havis, I need you to type in your contact information into the private chat so I can get it out. All right. So just let us know a little bit about how do we plan for retirement for just those people who are maybe more on the senior side or even younger people that are thinking about retirement. What are some things that they can do?
Well, I'll go first. I'll say this: if you're approaching retirement, one of the first things and I make this very clear, I'm no longer securities licensed because I'm the safe money guy. But I would tell someone who has a 401k, 403b, 457, TSP, any one of these programs to rebalance. Get very conservative. You want to make sure that you're not taking too many risks. And if you're over age 59 and a half, see if your company will allow you, to do what's called an in-service withdrawal. An in-service withdrawal is basically rolling over some of your qualified money from a qualified plan into an IRA or Roth or something like that. And put it somewhere where it's protected, okay? And I'll certainly put my contact information in there. But the funny thing is that if you're younger, if you're in your 20s or 30s, don't even worry about this. You have a long goal. What's your goal? To retire on a boat, on a yacht. I mean, if you're in your 20s and 30s, you got time. Remember what happened in 2008? People were so worried they lost so much money. It came back. In 1987, I was a young 21-year-old banker, Black Monday, I think it was, in October, when the stock market crashed. And people were jumping out of, stockbrokers were jumping out of buildings. This guy killed himself in Boston. The point I'm trying to make here is if you're young, you have time. If you're older, ask your company, if you're over 59 and a half, can you do an in-service withdrawal and put it in something secure and protected with guarantees where you can never outlive it. And if you are not yet 59 and a half, I still say if you have 10 years or less to go, rebalance. If you have more than that, you have time because it will come back. It always comes back.
Yep. My counsel is for everybody is to take a percentage of your money and invest. At a minimum, you should be putting aside 15% of your money towards retirement. And this is assuming you're not swallowed in consumer debt. You're not, living beyond your means. Get your financial house in order. Make sure you clear some of your debt, be in a good standing. But then you're going to invest. And the question I always get is, okay, Joseph, I get it. Invest. How do you invest and what do you invest in? Well, how? Just like we talked about opening a savings account, you can open a brokerage account, whether it be E-Trade, Fidelity, Vanguard, whatever you want, or within your company, wherever you work, they have a 401k, 403b option. And then you put the money in mutual funds and diversify your portfolio, right? So you want, a certain percentage of money in large companies like Amazon, Microsoft, whatever, in a large blue chip fund, right? You want another percentage of money in more mid-sized companies, and they have these mid funds, and they have, small cap, more smaller companies, and then put a certain percentage of your money in international, right? So you divide it amongst these four different quadrants. What's really cool is if you go to these, companies, they provide you what they call a prospectus, meaning all that is a report to show you how the fund is did. So you look at historical trends of the report and say, hey, look, this fund has grown 20% over the last 10 years, and it's been around for ages. Well, that's what you want to invest in, fine. But make sure that you are investing at minimum 15% of your money towards retirement so that you can be able to retire with dignity. So that's kind of my counsel as it relates to retirement.
Pastor Levy, anything you want to share on this aspect of it?
Yeah, retirement is coming whether you like it or not. And that definitely has to be a priority, I would say, after getting out of debt and, having your emergency fund set up. That is your next thing. You have to just start. If you don't know, if you're scared to do something or to, you don't know how to do it, look, just start somewhere. Put something in something. And I love these suggestions that Joe just gave us with those, small cap, large cap, international, so on and so forth. If you need more, help looking at those kinds of things, I'm sure Havis would love to do that. All three of us, I'm sure, would love to sit down with each of you to sit down and look at the prospectus of various funds and whatnot. But look, again, retirement is coming at some point in time. You have, and putting it in putting your retirement money in a savings account is not an option. You're not going to get a good return for that specifically. You've got to put in mutual funds if you can, get income properties or whatever. But a mutual fund is going to be the safest and easiest rather thing to put it in. That's my suggestion. You're muted, default.
Yeah. So I want to thank you all for this. We are a little bit past our hour window, and so there's been comments or people asking for this again, and I want to thank those who have been watching for your questions and then also for your suggestions. We'll talk to the panel and see if we could come together again to do this. But I just wanted to let you all know, for those of you who may want to get in touch with Dr. Levy, you can visit him on his website, which is www.troyslevy.com, or you can send an email to him at levylegacycoaching@gmail.com. All right. And so I'll leave that up so that you all can just see it for a little bit. If you need to take a screenshot or a picture of your screen, just please do that. And then by all means, if you would like to get in touch with Havis, he's provided us his cell phone number. You can also follow him on Facebook, Tuesdays with Terrence, or reach him in his office. Those are his numbers there, his cell phone number, his office number, and then also his additional number. And then I know that Havis, I probably left off your email address, and so let me just put his email address up here as well. You can also send him an email address. His email address is there on the screen. I just want to thank again you all. I want you all to take just 15 seconds to just summarize the most important financial advice you can give all of our listeners. 15 seconds. Go. Who's first?
I'll go first.
All right.
15 seconds. The advice I would give you for retirement is simply this: create generational wealth for in case you die too soon, live too long, or get ill. In any of those scenarios, it will pay. And the only foundation I know that can do that is an insurance foundation that's based.
All right.
I'll go next.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Troy. See you.
And communication for talking to my married couples and also for my singles, getting an accountability partner look, get on the same page for my married couples. Make sure that you're communicating, get those goals out. And there's nothing that will be able to stop you if you work together.
Yeah. I think the thing I'll add is, look, financial freedom is the ticket. It's everything. And a lot of people I know and people who are probably tuned in are struggling with student loan debt, a whole bunch of debt. Here's my encouragement to you. You have the opportunity to change your family tree. You could build the generational wealth that your grandkids, and the Bible does says, a good man or a woman leaves an inheritance for their children's children. So make a difference, go out there, cut debt, and start building and investing for your future.
I want to thank all of you all for tuning in, for watching us. I want to thank Joseph. I want to thank Havis. I want to thank Troy for sharing their wisdom. We'll do our best to do this again sometime. But until next time, please, if you have men that need to join, our men's webinar is this Saturday at 2:00. We have some very good brothers once again coming to share with us. I don't have the advertisement, but you can go to the Relationship Ministries webpage. You can go to the Relationship Ministries Facebook page, YouTube page, and you can get that information on that webinar that is coming up. Thank you for joining us. God bless you.